Okay, we're gonna be doing a brief stream here. I'm just gonna do the weeklies while testing the stability of this overclock. So I do have this. Oh, that moved again. Trying to get this straight. It's like a camera sitting on the floor, where looking at the computer side panel. So I did the full build. I moved over all my drives. A couple of things that I want to mention. I ended up having to take apart my TD510. I took the drive out of this thing, thinking that the Asus thing was better. It's actually not that much better. So I personally feel like liquid cooling. I personally feel like the air cooler is better in the sense that if you have a big Gen 5 SSD and it's actually a Gen 5 SSD, not, you know, like a Gen 4 SSD that's in a Gen 5 slot. The Gen 5 SSD uses like 10 watts of power, so that does cause the heatsink to get oversaturated, unless it's a really, really big heatsink, or unless it has active cooling. So it was never really a problem or a concern of mine previously, because I had an air cooler over the CPU, and using the CPU air cooler, the CPU air cooler tends to provide auxiliary airflow over not only the RAM and the VRMs, but that top SSD, which tends to run really hot if it's actually a Gen 5 SSD. Alright, so we're going to test the stability. I got some metrics to show here once I get done with this battle. Turn the sound, let's turn the sound down a bit. Just make it only the music there. That's better. Oh, am I supposed to? Okay, I didn't know. I completely forgot this fight. I don't even have my tank stance up. Hey Nero, when you had a cheap CPU cooler, the 7800 XT would make that thing chug because of how much heat exhaust is going into it. That's the reason why I like blower style coolers. I really do like the blower style cooler, because man, you don't have to worry about the GPU's heat being dumped into the case. I think, is this music too loud? Hold on, let me turn this down a little bit. There we go, that's better. Yeah, but see, did that guy not make it? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, the red mage is gonna get nuked. Okay. Yeah, so the thing about using an AIO, the AIO causes the SSD to run hotter than normal. Now, if you have a Gen 4 SSD or even a Gen 3 SSD, that doesn't really matter, because those SSDs don't generate that much heat with heat sinks on them. Like a Gen 5 SSD right now, my SSD is running at 68 degrees Celsius right now. So my Gen 5 SSD is 67, like it's peaking around, it can get up to like 70 Celsius. Now the throttle point supposedly is around 80 Celsius, but I don't like the idea of it running that hot while playing games. At idle, my SSD is running at 60 degrees. And just to compare the other SSDs are running at 44 degrees, 53 degrees, and 51 degrees. And those are all sharing the larger heatsink under the graphics card. But the one above the graphics card is running at 67 degrees currently. So that's quite warm. Yeah, 80C is the max. That's the throttle point. Mine doesn't get that hot. But, you know, it does get up to 70. I was testing it earlier. It gets up to like 71. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. So, what I'm going to do, I am going to switch to an air cooler. I'm going to switch to an air cooler after I've done testing this. The Ryzen 9 air cooler. Yeah, no, we're not talking about the CPU. I'm talking about my Gen 5 SSD. So, you guys may know, if you watch my channel for a while, I have a Gen 5 SSD. In fact, this is the world's first PCIe Gen 5 SSD. It comes with an active fan on it, which I never use because it uses a SATA power plug and it's obnoxiously loud. So today, I took this apart. I took out the SSD that was in here and I put it on my Crosshair Hero motherboard, and I'm using the Crosshair Hero's heatsink for the Gen 5 drive. But just like with the Tech Power Up review, Tech Power Up was saying that the ASUS cooling solution is inadequate for Gen 5 drives. Like when they were doing Crystal Disk Mark benchmarks, they were running to 80 degrees Celsius. They were basically running it to thermal throttling when they were testing it. So I might have to, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I am going to switch over to air cooling. I will switch over to, I mean, I've got the coolers behind me. We may switch the Deep Cool LT720 out for a Deep Cool AK620. So I might put this on there. Or what I could do is I could go with either this, which is a very old cooler. This is the Noctua NHD14. This was replaced by the NHD15, which I could also use that. So I've got 3 different air coolers. I have 3 different air coolers that I could switch over to from the 360 AIO. And I have a feeling the air coolers provide auxiliary airflow to the SSD, which is why this was never really a problem for me before. However, this is a different cooling solution for the SSD compared to the one that came with the SSD. What I could do is I could also switch back to this thing. However, I destroyed the thermal pads that were on this. This thing was kind of glued together. So by taking it apart, I've basically destroyed the thermal pads. I mean, I was also thinking, like, for the memory, I was thinking of like getting a fan, like a memory cooling fan for the RAM, and figuring out if there was a way to put that over the SSD. I could also try to get a better SSD cooler, like one that's not using the motherboard's one. It just feels kind of weird to do that. So just to kind of show people, this is the setup. You guys can see it is fully loaded. I basically have every single USB port plugged in to something on the back of the motherboard. I tested both PCI Gen, or not PCI Gen. I tested, well, yeah, I'm testing both PCIe slots. You can see I've got a capture card. That's the thing that glows red. That is the AverMedia capture card. Down there in the second slot, I have the GPU in the top slot. I have 4 M.2 drives installed. I do not have a 5th M.2 drive installed. I will do that. I will test the 5th slot to make sure everything works. What I like to do when I get a new motherboard, I make sure I test every single port, every single feature on the motherboard within the return window, so that if something is not working correctly, I can do a swap. I can take it back to Micro Center and get a replacement immediately before having to deal with ASUS and their RMA. So typically, if something is faulty out of the box, you want to make sure you can get that exchange from the retailer before the return window ends. So that's kind of how I do things. So right now I've tested every single USB port. In fact, I am running, I have it right here. This is a Thunderbolt 3 4K 60 HDR capture card. I have this plugged in. I guess I'll put it down here. You can see the cable. That is the Thunderbolt 3 cable. It is USB-C form factor. That is plugged into the USB 4 port, or one of them, on the back of the motherboard. So this is perfect for example, the PlayStation 5, or if I want to capture input video from another PC's motherboard, for example, to show like a BIOS tutorial, or if I want to like stream PS5 Pro games when it comes out, because that's what I plan on doing. So I could either go with my internal capture card, which is the one that's glowing in red there, or I could use this external capture card. Both of them are literally the exact same solution from AverMedia. The only difference is one of them is in an external enclosure and uses Thunderbolt 3. But like I told you guys, Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 are backwards compatible, or I guess I should say USB 4 is backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 4 and Thunderbolt 3. So if you have a Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4 device, you can plug it into a USB 4 port and it will work totally fine. In fact, this was so seamless, I didn't have to install any drivers at all. I literally plugged in the capture card and it works. It literally just worked perfectly. It also works with sleep, so if I put the computer to sleep, it turns off the capture card, and when I wake the computer up from sleep, the capture card wakes up. This was a bug that existed on Gigabyte's X670 motherboards last year, well, they never really fixed it, but it's been a problem on a USB 4/Thunderbolt on Gigabyte boards for the first generation AMD motherboards. So I tried to have Gigabyte fix that. Unfortunately, they never really did anything. They did fix the Titan Ridge card, but they never fixed the Maple Ridge one for some reason. But anyway. Is it worth doing BIOS on X870 yet? What do you mean, a BIOS update? Yes, I'm on the latest BIOS. I mean, technically, you want to be on the latest because the latest BIOS will provide the new inter-CCD fix. So if you're on a Ryzen 9 CPU, like for example, we are using a 9950X flagship, the inter-CCD latency on the older BIOS is much higher than on the newer BIOS. So you definitely want to get on the newer BIOS if you have a Ryzen 9 9900X or 9950X. Get Bits Power water block done. Does the Bits Power water block have a fan that cools the VRM and the RAM and the SSD? Because my problem is not the CPU, it's not the VRM, it isn't even the RAM, it's the top SSD. Currently, the top SSD is running 69 degrees Celsius. So that is my PCIe Gen 5 SSD. That's right there above the graphics card. Whereas the other ones, you know, I have 3 other ones underneath the graphics card. Those are, the hottest one is running 53 degrees. So I don't know why that one is just like, it's basically cooking. But that's the Gen 5 SSD. The rest are Gen 4 or Gen 3. I mean, Tech Power Up said that if you install it in the lower Gen 5 slot, it will run cooler, which means that Asus's heatsink is not applying enough mounting pressure because it's completely toolless. However, if I touch the heatsink, it is very hot to the touch. So the heatsink is doing its job. I just think it's inadequate for Gen 5. Did one of those 8000 series APUs potentially run 460 to 8000? So the 8000 series does have a newer memory controller than the 9000 series. Now, that's a good question. I don't know. But what I can tell you is from my own testing, 8,000 is too much. So you can see we are running 4 sticks, but we are running the 4 sticks at 6,000 because 8,000 is just too much. And I tried 6,400. So 6,400, I can boot into Windows, but 6,400 Gear 1 or 6,400 1.1, my CPU, I don't know if it's because I'm running 4 sticks of memory or if it's because I just didn't win the Silicon Lottery. My CPU cannot do 6,400 1.1 stable with these 4 sticks of memory. That's too much. But we are able to do 6,000 with 4 sticks of memory, which is what we're doing right now, and it's stable. So I was testing the stability earlier today, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do a live stream, and this will be the ultimate test. If the games that I'm playing while streaming do not crash, then I would consider this 100% stable, because I was doing mem test earlier. I did not do Y Cruncher, I didn't have time to fire that up, but I was testing mem test, and that passed like everything. It did not pass 6,400 though, so I dropped it down to 6,000, and so far 6,000 seems. I tightened up the timings a bit, so just to kind of show people who are probably interested in what the RAM is running at right now. So this is the Zen timings. I guess we can make this a little bit larger. I don't think the drop down shows up here. But actually, okay, so down here, at the very bottom here, you can see A1, so this is the first memory stick. A2, this is the second memory stick. B1, this is the third memory stick. And then B2, this is the fourth memory stick. So we are running 4 sticks of 24 gigabytes each for a total of, as you can see up here, 96 gigabytes of RAM. We are running the U clock at 3 gigahertz, which means it is synchronized 1.1 with the memory clock. I have not touched the fabric because I'm not going to mess with the fabric overclocking until I can guarantee that the memory is 100% stable, because we are running 4 sticks of memory. I tuned the TREFI to gigabytes known high-end setting for high bandwidth, and this one little tweak drops the latency down a lot. So I do have IDA 64 here somewhere. Okay, so this is the screenshot that I saved from the IDA 64 benchmark. So you guys can see with 4 sticks of memory, with it tuned, I got the latency down to, oh, that was the older one. Where is the, there it is. So this is, okay, actually this is good. So this is the original, guys. So look, auto settings results in 81.5 nanoseconds of latency. So the latency goes up when you run 4 sticks of memory. However, after I tuned the timings, I dropped it all the way down to 67 nanoseconds. And we brought the read up. The write is almost 90,000. So we got it up going pretty well now. So yeah, I think this is pretty good for somebody, for anybody who wants to run 4 sticks of DDR5 at 6,000 in Gear 1 or in what's known as the 1-to-1 ratio. It is possible to do that with the new X870E motherboards. So it looks like the new chipset, or not the chipset, it's just the newer design, the way that the wire trace layouts are done on the newer motherboards are superior to the older ones. So things like signal to noise ratio is better. Just the overall integrity of the signal as it traverses between the CPU to the memory across the motherboard is just a better fit for DDR5. I don't know how else to say it. Now, having said that, CUDIM is coming out early next year. We'll probably see the first batch of those hit market around December, but don't expect to be able to buy those until next year. So next year, CUDIM or CUDIM, which is kind of like CAM2, but it's in the regular DDR5 form factor, those will be supported on these motherboards via a BIOS update. In fact, if you have an MSI X870E Carbon Wi-Fi, and maybe the Tomahawk, but I know for a fact the Carbon from MSI today already supports the new CUDIM memory standard. So that means that MSI is actually the world's first, and the very first motherboard to support CUDIM is MSI's new X870E Carbon Wi-Fi. So that is a guaranteed thing. They have it in the BIOS today. Nobody else, as far as I know, has it. So MSI is basically the industry leader at this point. And it's the reviews show, because they have a new BIOS. The UEFI looks really, really good. What was the question? Does Sapphire Nitro XTX take too much power? Like, how much does it take? I mean, it can do... Okay, so the overclock... That graphics card has 3 different BIOSes. There's a switch. There's the software controlled. There's the default BIOS, which is an overclocked BIOS. And there is the silent BIOS, which actually runs it at the AMD reference card's power limit of 355 watts. So if you're using that BIOS on the Nitro, which is what I personally use, it doesn't pull more than 355 watts. If you use the default overclock BIOS, I think it can pull up to 400 watts. But it's been a long time since I've used that default BIOS, so I don't really remember the exact amount that it can pull, but I think it's around 400 watts. You got a BIOS update, but you're afraid to upgrade it? Agisa 1202. That's the one that I did on the live stream yesterday. I updated to 1202 yesterday. 1202, if you're on the 90... That's the one that has the fix. If you're on a Ryzen 9 9900X or 9950X, basically if you're on the new Ryzen 9 CPU like I am, you're going to want to be on Agisa 1202. That BIOS is the one that fixes the inter-CCD latency that reviewers had pointed out back when the CPU initially launched. But yeah, you definitely want to be on the latest BIOS. I would say even if you're on the older motherboards, if you're on the X670 boards, you're going to want to be on the latest BIOS. So currently with this configuration, I'm scoring around 44,000 in Cinebench R23. Just to give you guys an idea, single thread is somewhere in the neighborhood of 22. It's like 2,250, we'll call it. That's kind of like the median. So it's between 2200 and 2300 in Cinebench R23 single thread, and then the multi-thread is anywhere from 41,000 if you're at stock. It's like 41,000, and if you are tweaking it with Curve Optimizer, Curve Shaper, and PBO, like what I did on yesterday's build live stream, you can score like 43 to 44,000 pretty easily with this CPU. So the 9950X is definitely a high-end desktop replacement. So it's like if you're somebody who was used to using either Threadripper or the, and I'm talking about the older Threadripper, I'm not talking about the current Threadripper, that's still better than this for multi-thread. That scores about 50,000 in R23 on a 24 core. So if you're coming from an old Intel HEDT like Skylake X, for example, so that's X299, or if you're on an older Xeon, or if you're on the older Threadripper like X399, or the Threadripper 3000 series, for example, this CPU is so powerful as a regular consumer desktop CPU that it actually is better than all those older platforms. Like, it is significantly better than all of those, despite not having quad channel memory. So it is worth considering if you're trying to save money. Like, if you're someone who wants to upgrade your high-end desktop to like a new high-end desktop, but you don't feel like paying that much money to buy a Threadripper CPU and a Threadripper motherboard, or maybe a Xeon. I think this is definitely worth considering, unless you really need the PCIe lanes that Threadripper offers, because the only drawback of X870E that I can tell you about is the lack of the PCIe lanes. It would be nice to have like just an extra 4 to 8 lanes. Then this would be a definite consideration for anybody that was thinking of getting a Threadripper. Is the 9950X better than the 7950X 3D? If you're asking the question in regards to, like, I don't know the context of what you're asking. Like, is it better? In absolute, yes, it's better. It's faster in single thread. It's much faster in multi-thread. It has a newer architecture. It's more future-proof. If you're asking just gaming performance, this CPU at stock is about 2 to 3% slower in gaming than the 7950X 3D. But that's the only thing. Keep in mind, that is the only thing that it loses to the 7950X 3D. In everything else, this CPU wins hands down. Like, it isn't even comparable. Like, we're talking, like, the 7950X 3D scores like 35K in R23. This CPU scores like 43K. You know, like, we're like 8,000 points higher, maybe even 9,000 with an overclock. So it isn't even, you know, like, it's almost like they're in completely different tiers in terms of multi-thread. But yeah, what that means though, having said that, that means that the Zen 5 X3D, so like a 9950X 3D, with all the new architecture and IPC improvements, that CPU is going to be an amazing gaming CPU and multi. I think that's going to be like the go-to CPU for a content creator, I would think. Well, although this one is actually very, very good for that use case. But I think if it's someone who wants to play like games and they also want the threads, I think the 9950X 3D is probably going to be like a really, really good choice. Rumors were that both CCDs will be stacked with the cache. Yeah, okay. I mean, that'll be really interesting to see if that's actually what happens. You use Lasso to force games on the cache cores. You shouldn't have to do that. All you got to do is turn on game mode, and game mode does that for you. And if you don't want it to do that, turn off game mode before you turn on your game. It's that simple. I have the 7950X 3D. The 7950X 3D is the computer that's literally in the machine to the left of me. You guys can't see it. That's the computer that I use for Tech Thursdays. Although this one might eventually replace that one. So that other PC it uses a Gigabyte Aorus Master X670E. So that's got the 7950X 3D in there. That has 96 gigabytes of memory at 6400. That's 2 sticks. That's two times 48 for a total of 96. What we're doing here, we're doing 4 sticks of memory, because 4 sticks of memory looks better than 2 sticks of memory. So that's why we tune it. We get the latency down to like 65 nanoseconds, you know, 6011, and it's good to go, you know? Like, it's good to go. It's like we can do, the nice thing with the new motherboard is you can do what used to require you to only be using 2 sticks of memory. But yeah, like, I will be testing 2 sticks of memory on this motherboard in the future, but I'm pretty sure, like, I already know for a fact 8000 is super easy on this motherboard. Like, it's super easy. But I want to test if my memory can actually overclock to like 8200, 8400. That's what I want to test next. So I'm going to test 2 sticks, trying to overclock the 2 sticks, total of 48 gigabytes. So that's 2 times 24. So basically what I'll do is I'll take two of these sticks out, and I'll leave the other two in, and then we'll try testing that at like 8,000, 8,200, 8,400. But if like the nice thing with the new X870 is like you have a choice. If you want 4 sticks of memory, okay, you can do 4 sticks, 6,000, 1,1. Or if you want 2 sticks of memory, you can now push to like 8,200, 8,400, 1,2. And once you pull away from 8,000, you need to start overclocking the fabric so that the whole system can scale accordingly. And that is where the benefit of running in that 1-2 ratio comes into play. I like to use the car transmission analogy. You gotta shift, you gotta change gears so you can keep that thing rolling at that higher speed. That's just how it works. So, yeah, we'll definitely be doing a lot of videos. We'll be doing a lot of testing with 2 sticks of memory in the future. But it's nice to know that we can consistently do 6,000 now with 4 sticks of memory on DDR5, because that was a thing that you could, I showed how to do it on X670E. It was impossible on Intel. I couldn't do it on Z790. It didn't work. It basically corrupted my OS. The best I could do on Intel was like 5,200 with 4 sticks of DDR5. I think, yeah, it was, I know 4,800 worked. I think 5,000 also worked. And 5,200, I want to say 5,200 sort of worked. But anything above that did not work. So on AMD, I could get it to go 5,600. And then I could get it to do 6,000 on the older motherboard with 4 sticks. But the only thing about it was it would, like, if I put the computer to sleep and I wake the computer up, like, sometimes the computer would not wake up. And that told me that there was some kind of limitation with DDR5 and the low power sleep state. So yeah, then I was like, okay, so 6,000, it's like, it works, but only if you like cold start your computer every day. Like if you're someone like me who I never shut down my computer, I put my computer to sleep when I'm done using it. So basically the OS and everything is saved in the RAM running at very low power, and then I immediately resume it from sleep and it wakes up instantly. That's how I use my computer. But, you know, 6,000 and 4 sticks of DDR5, that didn't really work that well on the older motherboard. But I'll be testing it like this for the next several days. 4 sticks DDR5, 6,000 on the new motherboard with the new and improved chipset, the new and improved trace layout design. Asus has patented this technology called Nitro Path. That's what their marketing term is. But basically what it means is they have made refinements to the connection where the gold-plated contacts touch the DDR5, or it connects to the DDR5, and then the traces actually sit further down in the socket, in the DIMM slot, so that there's less, supposedly according to Asus, there's less electrical noise and interference. So that might be one of the reasons why when you're running 4 sticks, now it seems like it's running stable at these higher speeds, whereas before it was very hit or miss. So yeah, I like it. MSI also is touting 6,000 plus on 4 sticks of DDR5 on the Carbon Wi-Fi. As well as the Godlike. The Godlike is probably, like if you're somebody who wants to run a lot of memory, like 192 gigs of RAM, and you want to try to push for 6,000 across all 4 sticks, the Godlike is probably going to be the motherboard that can do it. Now, is it worth paying that much money? That's, you know, whoever's considering that board, they're going to have to figure that out. But the Godlike, because the Godlike is a 10-layer PCB. That is a server grade motherboard made for the consumer market. So that motherboard will probably have the best noise and electrical interference mitigation, isolation, whatever you want to call it. So that motherboard will probably be the best one for memory overclocking compared to all these other ones. Even this Crosshair Hero, because this Crosshair Hero is only an 8-layer motherboard. However, it does feature Asus's Nitro Path, But having said that, I would take more layers on a motherboard over like some marketing gimmick terminology that might help, but might also be marketing. So, yeah. We'll see. I think things will get interesting for people who are wanting to overclock DDR5 and run a lot of DDR5 once the Godlike comes out. But ultimately, I think what will really bring DDR5 into the next generation will be the CU-DIMM standard. So CUDIMM, I'm calling it CUDIMM, it's CU-DIMM. Those of you who have heard of something called CAM2, CU-DIMM is basically CAM2, except it is a standard DDR5 DIMM. So instead of it being like a flat thing that it's not easily replaceable because you have to, or it's not easily upgradable because you have to basically replace the whole thing, it is basically CAM2, but it's in a regular DIMM slot configuration. So that, I think, is going to be the thing that finally brings DDR5 back to the way DDR4 behaved in terms of things like memory training times, in terms of being able to hit higher clock speeds at lower voltages. Basically a win-win for like everything. I think CUDIMM will bring that to market, but that's not until next year. So it's, yeah. One of the reasons why I mean, that's another reason why I would recommend, if someone's thinking of upgrading and they're thinking, should they get a X870 motherboard or should they save some money and get the older X670, I recommend getting X870. It's newer. It has, a better design overall in terms of the memory support. It will have support for CUDIMM in the future. In fact, MSI already supports CUDIMM in their X870 motherboards. So, that's why, like, at this point, I would kind of stay away from X670 unless you don't care about any of that stuff and you just want to build a computer for, like a certain price point or something. What is the performance gain going from 6 to 8? It's anywhere from 2 to 3%, but it really depends on the application. If you're talking games, it's like very, very minimal. But if you're talking like productivity, by running your RAM at 8,000, you're getting like way more memory bandwidth. So yeah, 8,000 is definitely the way to go if you have sticks that can do 8,000. It's also easier on the memory controller because the memory controller runs at a slower speed. It basically pushes the weight, it pushes the burden onto the memory when you run the RAM at 8,000. ASRock has the only 870 that is close to the price point. Yeah, and oh, the other thing too. So if you're somebody who doesn't like the idea, of motherboards taking lanes from the graphics card slot for M.2 drives, ASRock has got you covered. ASRock is the only one, currently ASRock is the only one that has the Tai Chi and the Tai Chi Lite that do not take lanes from the graphics card slot for M.2. All the other ones, they take lanes from the CPU to give you more Gen 5 slots. So the one caveat with ASRock is you only get one Gen 5 M.2 drive. All the others are going to be Gen 4. But if you don't care about Gen 5 storage and you want your graphics card to always run at X16, ASRock is the way to go for X870E. What about Gigabyte X870E or Elite Ice? I believe that one takes lanes like all the others, man. I think we talked about that. I think we covered. Yeah, you weren't here. I basically did a deep dive live stream. We went through all the different motherboards, all the ones that were announced. We pulled up paint. I drew all the block diagrams. It was very, very technical. Yeah, I don't feel like doing that again, honestly, because that's just very, very time consuming. But yeah, I believe Gigabyte, Aorus Elite, does take lanes from the graphics card to give you extra M.2 drives. So you just have to be aware of that. I mean, that is a thing with a lot of these boards. Let me pull that one up, actually. Gigabyte X870E Ice Elite, right? Or is it Pro Ice or was it Elite Ice? There's a Pro Ice. Is there an Elite Ice? Oh, wait, there is. Okay. It's an X870. It's not an X870E. X870E is the Pro Ice, not the Elite Ice. X870E Oris Pro. I think you're talking about the Pro Ice. You're talking about this one. Hold on, where's my... You're talking about this motherboard. Man, this computer is fast. This computer is so smooth. It's like so new and fast. Like loads everything so instantly, despite live streaming, running games, and all this stuff in the background. Anyway, yeah, see? Right there. The second and third M.2 on the Ice, the Oris Ice, takes lanes from the GPU slot to power 2 of the drives. So you got basically here's the rule of thumb. Here's the rule of thumb that you should try to not forget, because this applies to every single X870E motherboard. Now, X870 is different, but X870E, every single X870E, and I believe X870, yes, this applies to both. Every X870 and X870E will guarantee at least one Gen 5 SSD. Every single one. It doesn't matter what brand, it doesn't matter what motherboard. Every single one will guarantee one Gen 5 SSD. This is a requirement. This is basically a platform specific functionality. It is a guaranteed certainty that every single X870E and X870 board will have at least one Gen 5 M.2 slot. As we can see here on the Ice, it has one. This is irrespective of anything else. This does not take lanes from the GPU. This has its own dedicated 4 lanes of Gen 5 bandwidth directly from the AM5 CPU. Now, anything else, that depends on how the motherboard manufacturer decided to design their motherboard. So in the case of Gigabyte, they said, okay, we're going to put a PLX switch, and we're going to do the graphics card slot here, or we're going to give half of those lanes to 2 additional M.2 drives. That way, you can drive up to 3 on this motherboard. You can do 3 Gen 5 full bandwidth Gen 5 SSDs. The one trade-off is the GPU will then run at 8 lanes. That is CPU lanes. See this black line? This black line on the left connects directly into the CPU socket. There's no chipset. It completely bypasses the chipset. So down here we have the chipset. The chipset has an additional Gen 4 SSD. So you got 3 Gen 5s wired directly into the CPU, and you have a 4th Gen 4 off of the chipset. Then there's a second chipset because it's X870E. X870E means 2 chipsets. It's dual chipsets. X870 is only single chipset. So Gigabyte is giving you the nice thing with Gigabyte. Okay, what I'm noticing, there's a thing here. There's like they all have different purposes. If you want an X16 graphics card and you always want it to be X16 and you don't want this behavior, ASRock is your brand. ASRock has those type of motherboards. That would be the Tai Chi and the Tai Chi Lite. If you're somebody who wants a bunch of PCIe slots, like dedicated PCIe slots, Gigabyte is actually the best, because Gigabyte, not only do they have the X16 graphics card slot, they have 2 more, one PCI Gen 4 X4 and a PCI 3.0 X4. So this motherboard has traditional PCIe slots that all 3 of them can be used, and there's no, like, they don't share bandwidth. Now obviously the graphics card slot shares bandwidth with 2 of the M.2 slots. However, you can plug 3 peripherals. You can plug in a GPU. You can literally plug in 3 graphics cards if you wanted, and you can literally drive 3 graphics cards off of this motherboard, and all 3 of them will work. The top one will run up to X16. The second and the third one will both run at X4. So that's because they only have 4 lanes. So if you're somebody, so I guess now I feel like Gigabyte now is absolved of any sin, because now I understand. I see the light now. I understand what Gigabyte was trying to do. Gigabyte was trying to cater to the needs of somebody who needs a bunch of PCIe connectivity for whatever reason. Like, the reality is, if somebody, here's another thing, if somebody wanted to, they could run the 4 drives on the board, plus they could run 2 additional drives via NVMe to PCIe adapter cards. So you could literally plug an M.2 into this via an adapter. You could plug another one into this one. I mean, it would only be PCI Gen 3, so you can only run at Gen 3 speed. But you could literally do 6 SSDs off of this motherboard. So at the end of the day, it's you know, it has its use case. So yeah, I mean, it's all of them seem to have different purposes. Like, if you're somebody who wants PCIe, Gigabyte. If you're somebody who wants an X16 graphics card, no matter what, ASRock. So I think that pretty much answers that question. Wait, is that a good thing? What was the question? Oh, John was saying people tend to freak out over X8, but current cards and games. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But some people, they just don't, you know, they're just OCD about, like, I don't want my GPU running at X8. You know, especially once that argument will become even weaker once the new graphics cards come out, because the newer graphics cards will be Gen 5. So, yeah. Jedi saying ASRock's, yeah, I mean, ASRock's pretty good, guys, for real. If we go back to the thing here, so ASRock Tai Chi, this board. So if you're somebody who likes extended ATX, if you like that motherboard with the wide stance, you know, like the EATX, not regular ATX, ASRock has the EATX. So, and the nice about ASRock, man, ASRock is bringing the value. Like, this motherboard is a flagship motherboard, but it is significantly cheaper than all the other flagship motherboards. I mean, this motherboard is $449 US. That is $50 cheaper than the Strix. That is $50 cheaper than the Carbon. That is, what, $250 cheaper than the Hero. And the Hero isn't even an EATX board. So, yeah, I like how ASRock took advantage of the EATX and put one of the M.2s over here by the RAM. So it's easier to get to. You don't have to pull out the graphics card if you want to, like, install or change the SSD in there. And, you know, ASRock also caters to the people who like using SATA, because the Taichi has 6 SATA ports. Like, this is one of the only motherboards out of the new ones that offer 6 SATA ports. Everybody else is doing like 4 SATA, you know, like, and they're just, it's like, who uses SATA anymore? Well, the people that do are probably the people that also don't want the GPU losing like half the lanes. So ASRock has you covered. Like, they're the one that has it. Now, there's one caveat. The one caveat is the bottom slot, the second PCIe slot, that shares lanes with the CPU. So as long as, or with the GPU, I should say. So as long as you don't use the second PCIe slot on the Taichi, your graphics card is always going to be running at full X16. And we can prove that. We can prove that very easily because ASRock does a great job in showing the block diagram. How do I rotate this? There. There you go. So right here, PCI Gen 5 X16 or X8. But the only time it'll ever run X8 is if the bottom PCI slot is in use. So that's the only thing that is sharing with that. All the M.2s are separate. Your guaranteed Gen 5 M.2, like I said earlier, every single one of these boards, irrespective of brand, will have a guaranteed Gen 5 M.2. Then we have a second one, then we have a third one, and a fourth one, and none of these things are sharing bandwidth. And there is the USB 4 controller, which can drive 2 external monitors over USB-C, in addition to the HDMI on the back as well. So this motherboard can easily drive, at minimum, 3 monitors off of the integrated graphics. So yeah, man, Taichi is bringing the value. This is probably the value king. And it still has the 5 gigabit LAN. It still has the Wi-Fi 7. It has all that stuff like all the others. Plus a ton of where's the gallery on this thing? Oh, there it is. Plus a ton of USB. BIOS, flashback button, clear CMOS button, 5 gig LAN, Wi-Fi 7, optical audio. You know, like, it's fully loaded. Taichi's got everything you need. It even has the easy latch. It even has the quick disconnect for the GPU. They even have that. So it's like they got everything. They literally have everything. Definitely the one you would get. Yeah, ASRock, man, I will say this. ASRock, their engineers, whoever is writing the documentation in the BIOS menu and sub-menus for ASRock's BIOS, they do such a good job. I would say out of everybody, ASRock seems to be the most detailed when it comes to reading. Like, if you look in the ASRock BIOS and you go through the folder menus and you read like the explanations of what every single BIOS setting does, ASRock gives you like a full paragraph of what it does. Like, no one else does that. The others are like these very vague, like poorly translate. It's like someone used Google Translate to translate from Mandarin to English, and then they just typed like a 3-word sentence or something. You know, like, I mean, ASRock gives you like a full sentence, man. Like, I'm serious. Like, take it from me. I've used every single brand. Like, I literally have a Steel Legend on the floor right here. Like, I literally got the box. Where's the box? Oh, the box is over there. The Steel Legend box is literally right there behind me. So we got ASRock in here. We got Gigabyte in here. We got Asus now. As of yesterday, Asus is back in action over here because I have not used Asus in a very long time. The only one that I don't have that's current, like, I have not used MSI in a very long time. Now, I have MSI motherboards. I have a Threadripper MSI motherboard, an X399. I have an Intel MSI. Like, I have a really old MSI Z87 for, like, Intel Haswell. And then I've got a what's the other MSI? Oh, I have the MSI, the very first generation of Ryzen. I have the MSI X370 X-Power Gaming Titanium. It was their flagship motherboard for the initial launch of Ryzen back in 2017. So I've got 3 MSI boards. You're thinking of getting Nova? Nova is good, man. Nova's good, but I think Nova's more expensive. Is Nova more expensive than Taichi, or is Taichi more expensive than Nova? Sometimes you have to justify, like, if it's worth getting the highest end or not, versus like the one that's right underneath it. It also runs really hot. The M.2 Gen 5, if you're actually using an M.2 Gen 5, it runs hot. Like my M.2, I have a M.2 Gen 5. I literally have the inland. This is the very first Gen 5 SSD. It has an active cooling fan on it. I took the drive out. I put it on my new Asus motherboard, and I'm using Asus's included heatsink. And my Gen 5 SSD is currently running 67 degrees Celsius. So yeah, I would agree. You don't really need more than one Gen 5 SSD. Good luck trying to cool 4 Gen 5 SSDs. You know, because apparently it's hard enough to cool one of them. With the included heatsink that is supposed to go with a Gen 5 slot. So I'm actually considering getting a separate, like, third-party Gen 5 heatsink for this SSD, because the Asus Crosshair Hero is disappointing me in terms of the temperatures that I'm seeing. Like 67 degrees Celsius, you know, that's on the hot side. I don't like that, you know. Like, I look at my other SSDs. I've got a Gen 3 running at 42 Celsius. I've got a Gen 4 and another Gen 4 running at 52 and 50 degrees Celsius respectively. So the Gen 5 is like 15 degrees hotter than the Gen 4 drive. And the Gen 5 one has a much bigger heatsink on it. Why did I choose Asus over the rest? So for me, the reasons were the following. I wanted dual E-clock for asynchronous mode overclocking. And I knew that the Hero always has that feature. Now, I don't know if the Taichi or the Carbon or the Master have that. What I can tell you is my Gigabyte Master that I have now, I have the X670E Aorus Master, that does not have the asynchronous E-clocks. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to go with Asus. It's mainly because I want to make YouTube content for overclocking CPU. That's the main reason why. Otherwise, I probably would have gone with the Taichi or the Carbon, if I'm being completely honest. But the Asus board, it's good. It's just, I think it's very, very expensive for what you're getting. I paid $700 for the Crosshair Hero from Micro Center yesterday on launch day, and so it is a very expensive motherboard. And I feel like overall it's decent, but I wish that it was like $100 to $150 cheaper. I really wish the Crosshair was like a $600 motherboard or a $550 motherboard. You know, even at that price point, you're still paying the Asus tax. But at this point, I feel like the Asus tax is... Only time will tell. I still feel like, despite the negative press that Asus has gotten this year, I think there's too many people that just blindly buy Asus and don't listen to what reviewers say or what, what news articles about RMA claims and all that stuff. There's too many people that still buy Asus just because they don't know what else is out there. And that's a sad reality. Not to say Asus is bad, but, you know, Asus is the biggest one in terms of market share. So some people just buy what is the most popular one in terms of who has the most visibility, who has the most marketing. The only thing is, it only has one Gen 5. What are we talking about? Oh, the ASRock? Yeah, the ASRock only has one Gen 5. However, I mean, guys, keep in mind, like... Okay, here, I'm gonna teach you guys a little trick about the ASRock though. Look, hold on. So look at this. So ASRock's only got one Gen 5. Well, guess what? Guess what? ASRock gives you the option. If you really want more Gen 5 on the ASRock, you can install a NVMe, you can install a PCIe expansion card in the second slot that can support 2 additional Gen 5 SSDs. Just know that you'll use half of your GPU lanes to do that. But what does that mean? That means ASRock gives you the option. It doesn't shoehorn you into giving up lanes. It's like if you want to make that compromise, you have the option. So it's like you can literally do 3 Gen 5. That includes the primary, that includes an add-in card that adds 2 more. So that's 3 Gen 5 plus 3 Gen 4. So this motherboard can do 6 SSDs. 3 Gen 5 and 3 Gen 4. If you want to fully max it out. The only caveat is if you're doing 6 M.2s, your graphics card runs at X8. But I think that's a good trade-off. I think that's a fair trade-off. So I feel like Taichi still strikes the right balance. Oh, you're talking Nova? I don't... Nova is probably going to be the same layout. Does Nova have like an extra slot or something? Okay, let's look at the Nova. Whoa, what is this? Whoa, this thing's got a lot going on. You see this big old thing over here. There's a huge heatsink. Is this the flagship? Nova is the most significant. What is going on here? Okay, this is the cool one. Oh man, oh I see what they're doing. Okay, this is ASRock. Okay, this is like ASRock is telling them this is what it means to go beyond. This is the best one or the second best one? Wait, this is $349? This has 5 M.2 slots. This is $350? How is this cheaper than the Taichi? This thing has 5 M.2 slots. So wait, Taichi's the best and Nova is the second best? Oh, okay. I see what they're doing. Well, no, they can't all, the rest cannot all be Gen 4. One of them is Gen 3. The 5th one is Gen 3. See, I got a 100 on the test, so I know all the answers. And I can tell you, there's no way that this motherboard can have 4 Gen 4 SSDs. It can only have 3 Gen 4 SSDs. That means the 5th M.2 must be Gen 3. Otherwise, the only way they can do like 4 Gen 4 is if they basically have to split one of them into 2. Which means instead of doing 4 lanes for a Gen 4, they do 2 lanes to one Gen 4 and 2 lanes to another Gen 4. That's the only way they can do that. So otherwise, this is a okay. I bet you this is a Gen 3. Let's take a look. Let's look at the block diagram. Man, this is a really cool motherboard. I didn't even know ASRock had one that had 5. Yeah, it's got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it has an X1. I think that's X1. That's cool. Whoa, hey, hold on. Are you sure this one's lower end than the Taichi? This looks higher end than Taichi. This is like the Crosshair Hero from Asus, because the Asus has 5 M.2 slots. Wait, this thing has 5 M.2 slots. This is $350? What? Aha! Oh, there we go. Look. Gen 3. And there's a switch. Oh, I see. Oh, that's cool. They're doing two. Oh. Hold on a second. Is this, is that... Ooh, that's an open slot. What the... Wait, what? Hold on, what is the back of this? What does the back look like? I want to know what the USB layout looks like. This thing is insane. What? How did I not know about this? I want to see the back. Wait, this thing has a back plate? No, there's no way the Nova can't be $350. The Nova cannot be $350. This motherboard has a back plate on it. There is no way this is $350. This is definitely their highest end board. This has got to be the highest end board. It has a back plate. It has 5 M.2 slots. This is the highest end board they've got. Why can't I find a picture of the back? They literally don't... Okay, do I have to go in the manual for this? Oh, there we go. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so it has the exact same back. This is identical to the Tai Chi. There's no way that this is cheaper than the Tai Chi. Are you looking at the right one? Is this X870E Nova Wi-Fi? Wait, what? Wait, huh? Yeah, you guys are right. This is 3... What? I don't understand. How is this cheaper? How is this $100 less than the Tai Chi? This looks better than the Tai Chi. It has the exact same back as the Tai Chi. It has a back plate. What the... Is this like a 6-layer PCB or something? Like, how is this cheaper? Did somebody in the accounting department at ASRock mess up the price or something? Like, something is wrong here. This has a postcode. This motherboard has a postcode. How is this thing $350? What the? How is this the full chipset and it's like $350 and it has the postcode debug? Asus is charging $500 for the ProArt, and that thing doesn't even have a postcode on it. What? How did I not know about this? This is... What? Whoa, hold up. Okay, I will be making a new tier list. I will be making a tier list video, because I made the tier list videos years ago for X670E. This thing, I can tell you right now, is automatically S tier. This is automatically S tier. If this is an 8-layer PCB, this is automatically S tier. Like, there's no other motherboard can beat this motherboard. Like, in fact, this motherboard will sit in a class by itself. This will be like S+. No other motherboard will be able to rival this board. Like, it's impossible because the price is just too good. The price is too good. It's EATX. It has the postcode. It has a full, like it has the full back. It has 5 M.2s physically on the board. Like, I mean, it even has an X2. It even has an X2 slot. Do you guys know what that means? Do you know what you can do with this small little rinky-dink PCIe slot? You know what? There's something called 10 gigabit LAN. You can literally plug a 10 gigabit NIC in that small second PCIe slot and get full 10 gig speed. There's no way. There's nothing. Like, none of the other boards can compete with this board. This is automatic S tier winner. This is automatic S tier winner. This is literally, we're looking at motherboard of the year, guys. This is motherboard of the year. $350, postcode. You can add 10 gig LAN if you want. It has 5 M.2 slots on the board. It has the GPU quick disconnect. You can slide the GPU out really easily. Like, whoa, what is this thing? Like, how did I not know about this? Why doesn't Micro Center have this? Like, what? How did I not know about this? Wait a minute, hold on. I gotta study the block diagram. This thing is like way too good. What makes this way too good is the price, though. I can't believe this is $350. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoa, 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 wait a minute. This motherboard always guarantees 16 PCIe lanes. This motherboard guarantees GPU full bandwidth all the time, no matter what. You can literally plug all 5 M.2 slots in with drives. You can fill the whole motherboard up with SSDs, and this thing is still 16 lanes on the graphics card. What? How? There's no way. What is the drawback? Like, what's the weakness? Oh, I found one thing. Okay, I found one weakness, but no one cares. Guess what? It has an ASM 1061. That means these two SATA, you get 4 SATA. These two SATA support RAID. These two SATAs do not support RAID. So you cannot use RAID with these 2 SATA drives. But guess what? Nobody cares about using RAID on a consumer desktop in 2024. Yeah, less VRM than Tai Chi. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Because the hilarious thing is, here's the ironic thing about that. AMD CPUs don't pull that much power. So all those fancy VRMs on like all these high-end boards like the Tai Chi are a complete waste. It's a complete waste. It's so overkill. None of that actually matters. Because the AMD CPU doesn't even pull that much power. The 9950X, if you overclock it and you max it out, the most it'll pull is like 260 watts. 260 watts. Like, you can get by on any of these VRMs with that. like that's ridiculous. Oh man. You know what the default power limit for a 9950X is 200 watts on Cinebench. This thing only pulls 200 watts while running Cinebench R23. At stock. It uses like 30 to 50 watts less energy than the previous 7950X. And it's scoring like 42,000. It scores like 42,000 in R23, pulling 200 watts. So, yeah, no, I don't care about the VRM. That's ridiculous. Whoa, this is crazy. If this is real. I can't believe this is real. $350 for this? Man, they're gonna need a price adjustment. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, wait a minute. This is the secret motherboard. This is literally the secret motherboard. This is like the... Oh, man. This is the winner. This is like the winner motherboard right here. One PCI X16. One PCI 3.0. No, it doesn't do X16 Gen 3. Look, it's... Okay, look. I'll show you guys the slots. PCI X16 Gen 5. Then down here, there's a PCI X1 Gen 3. Oh, and then there's a PCI X2 Gen 3. Yeah. So, okay, this is... Okay, so there's a correction. So I was incorrect on one thing, which is actually a good thing. So, on this motherboard, so down here at the bottom, you have an X1 Gen 3, which is basically useless unless you want to run like a 1080p capture card. So, or you want to install a 2.5 gigabit NIC or a 5 gigabit NIC. But the motherboard already has a 5 gigabit on the back. Now, the very bottom slot is an X2 slot. So you know what you can put in that X2 slot? A 10 gigabit network card. You can literally add 10 gigabit LAN to this motherboard
8-layer
like
PCB,
that.
2 ounces copper PCB.
Okay, yeah. Jedi, that means that this is literally the same as the Crosshair Hero. This motherboard is the same layer and copper ounce as the $700 motherboard from Asus. That's hilarious. This thing is $350. The Asus motherboard is $700. And they have the exact same layer count and the exact same amount of copper ounce. I feel like I got scammed by Asus now. I feel like I got scammed, man. Like, this is... How did I not know about this? I'm pretty much now like I'm like the motherboard I'm like the motherboard guy on YouTube at this point. I've done like so many motherboard videos. Now I feel so dumb that I didn't know about the Nova, or like I didn't cover the Nova like early on. Like I remember seeing it at Gamescom last month or like in August, and then I kind of like mentioned it, but then we never really dug into it enough. Man, I feel so dumb right now. Like, this is the motherboard to get. Like, this is literally the motherboard to get. Wow. Micro Center 15-day return policy. I know, right? Yeah, now you definitely got me considering. Man. Wow. There's gotta be something though, like this is so much better than the Tai Chi. I don't even understand like why. There's gotta be some caveat, like there has to be, but I can't, at least on paper, I can't see anything wrong with it. Like this all makes sense. Like, that makes sense. Here's the Wi-Fi 7. Here's the Realtek 2 SATA that supports RAID. The other 2 SATA don't support RAID. So the one difference is the Tai Chi has 6 SATA. This one has 4 SATA. 2 of them do not support RAID. On the Tai Chi, all 4 of them support RAID. You can tell I'm grasping at straws here. I'm trying to nitpick the Nova as much as possible because, like, I don't understand, like, how I didn't know about this. The X1 is kind of... You know, there's not a lot of use cases for the X1 Gen 3 in 2024. I mean, I can think of a handful. If you want to run a cheap 1080p capture card from 10 years ago, that'll work fine in there. A 5 gigabit network interface, technically, as long as it's Gen 3, will work in there. And then this bottom one, though, the rare X2 slot, the rare X2 is actually very, very good because it's Gen 3. If you want to run I have a video proving this. If you want to run 10 gigabit LAN via a PCIe network interface card or a NIC, an NIC, you only need 2 lanes of Gen 3 to get the full 10 gigabit. So literally you could plug a 10 gigabit LAN card into this bottom slot, and now you have 10 gigabit LAN on a $350 motherboard. Sound card, yeah. You could put a sound card in the X1 if you wanted, yeah. So you could do a sound card in the X1, you could do a 10 gigabit network interface card in the bottom slot. I mean, man, this thing's insane. Like, I can't believe how much value this motherboard offers, all the while never stealing lanes from the graphics card. That is just too good. That is too... And it's got the USB 4. Well, all of them have USB 4. But, I mean, is it Wi-Fi 7? I mean, all of them are supposed to be Wi-Fi 7. Is it Wi-Fi 7? Wi-Fi 7! Man, this thing's got everything. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. This is it. This is the S tier. So this thing's gonna be at the top of the tier list video. I'm pretty sure everybody that's been watching this understands that. This is what an S-tier motherboard looks like. It's very, very rare to encounter an S-tier motherboard that is actually worth the title of S-tier. What are we talking about? Internet? Well, no, I'm not talking about 10 gigabit internet. I'm talking about, like, if you have a home network, so your internet can be much slower. Like, the outside internet speed can be slower. But if you want to run, like, a home network, you can run 10 gigabit. Wait, what is this 10 megabit? 10 meg? We're not talking about 10 meg. I'm talking 10 gig. Did I say 10 meg? I meant 10 gig. You can run 10 gigabit off of a network card on the bottom slot on this Nova. That is crazy. Man, that's good. I can't believe this exists. There's got to be some kind of price correction in store for this. Like, this is basically, this is how you win market share. But the problem for ASRock is ASRock historically just doesn't really get a lot of coverage from the media. So, I mean, there will be some reviews, but man, that's such a good board. That is such a good motherboard. What's the, let's see what the... Yeah, and it's got the latest BIOS. It's had the latest BIOS that fixes the inter-CCD as of September 24th. So that's, yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I've noted this motherboard down. This motherboard is definitely on the list. But this tells me that I gotta do more research. Because I was thinking of making a tier list video for X870E. This proves that I am not prepared to make that video. I have to, now I gotta go look at like all the Gigabyte boards again. I gotta go look at the lower end MSI boards like the Tomahawk. Because the Tomahawk, people are saying the Tomahawk's really good. You know, like, I mean, this thing's like, this is 10 times better than Tomahawk. Brand tax is a real thing. No, it's real. Like, when people say the Asus tax, they're not joking. That's a thing. I can't believe, like, case in point, the Nova and the Crosshair are both 8-layer, 2-ounce PCB motherboards. They're literally the same. They're literally the same. They're literally cut from the same PCB. One gets turned into a $350 ASRock. The other one gets turned to a $700 Asus. Crazy. Europe, everything is 20% higher prices than in America. Does the Europe price, though, that includes the VAT, right? Like, VAT taxes in there? At least when you're looking at the European price, at least VAT is included. I would assume it is. Tax is not listed on American prices. Keep that in mind. So whatever you see for the American price, that has no tax included. Doesn't the Euro price include the tax? Yeah. So you do have the tax in. The American price does not have the tax. So the real price in America is actually higher than $350. But still, you know, like that $350 versus like $700 on Asus. I mean, you know, even with the tax, like the Asus one's still gonna be way more. Yeah, that is... Wow. That's crazy. Okay, well, I'm gonna bookmark this. I'm definitely bookmarking this one. I'll have to look into this one again. You know what I just realized thinking about this? I bought an Asus Crosshair Hero yesterday. Do you know what I could have purchased with $700 instead? I could have got the PS5 Pro. All those people complaining about the PS5 Pro being $700, man, for real, I just bought a $700 motherboard. Like, I'm in no position to complain about the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro. That's a full console with everything included. The motherboard from Asus is literally just a motherboard. You still need the rest of the computer. That's crazy. Yeah, I know, right? I could literally buy the Nova and a kit of memory that can clock to 8,000 or better. I could buy a kit that can clock to 8,400 and I'd still be under the price of the Hero. Man. Okay, well, thanks for bringing this to my attention. Otherwise, I would have completely forgotten about the Nova. I always thought the Tai Chi... Wow, so the... I honestly cannot understand why anybody would buy the Tai Chi over the Nova. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this one... I mean, the only thing I can think of, the only argument would be if somebody wanted more PCIe connectivity options, because the Tai Chi, the bottom slot on the Tai Chi is an X8 Gen 5 slot that shares lanes with the CPU or the GPU slot, whereas the Nova does not have that. So I guess the one thing about the Nova only has 16 Gen 5 lanes for the graphics card and then 4 lanes of Gen 5 for the top SSD, and that's basically a fixed setup. There's no other way to use Gen 5 CPU lanes outside of some sort of card that goes in the GPU slot. So like if you weren't going to use an actual graphics card, the hilarious thing is you could, like, if someone was going to build a workstation and they didn't need a gaming graphics card, they just, you know, like, they'll just use the integrated graphics. They could literally populate that with 4. They could put like an Asus Hyper M.2 card, for example. They could literally run 5 Gen 5 SSDs, 4 off of the GPU slot, 1 off of this top native one, and then they could do 10 gig LAN at the bottom. And here's what's even more wonky. You could literally plug an external graphics card into the USB 4 port on the back. You could literally plug an eGPU. You could plug a 4090 in. Now, I don't think anybody would want to do that. That's sounds kind of dumb. But literally, technically, you can plug an external GPU into the USB 4 port, and it will work just fine. So, because it features full PCIe tunneling. So, that is what... It's like the amount of options. The amount of options on the Nova are near endless. Yeah, if you could get a 7800M, yeah, you could use that as an eGPU. Do you recommend upgrading the Hero to the if you don't care? No, there isn't really much of a reason. I mean, the only difference is the Nitro path on the Hero and the Slim SAS connector on the new Hero. That's basically it. I actually think that the X670E Hero has a more optimal... It has a more... It's got more freedom. I guess it's got more flexibility in how you can do things. Whereas the X870E Hero, it kind of shoehorns you into certain configurations whether you want it or not. Like, for example... the X870E Hero includes a Slim SAS Enterprise connector. Well, I mean, who needs that? You know, like, that's a workstation thing. Who's gonna use that on a consumer desktop platform? Like, you can. I mean, it's there. It's kind of weird that it's on the overclocking board and not the ProArt. So I don't know. It's like, it's strange. So the X870E Hero, it's a good motherboard, but it's definitely not the best motherboard, and it's definitely not really worth getting if you already have the X670E Hero. I'm now waking up your addiction to upgrade the Aorus Master X670E to the ASRock Tai Chi X870E. Forget about the Tai Chi, man. The Nova. The Nova is where it's at. The Nova's the one to get, not the Tai Chi. There's like really no reason to get any of the other boards at all, except the Nova. If I knew that, man, I would have been talking about the Nova for like weeks. If I knew about this. Yeah, Hero, the old Hero has USB 4. Yes, that's correct. But it does it differently. It's on the back end, it's PCI Gen 3 on that chip, whereas with the new one it's Gen 4. So just keep that in mind. There is a difference between X670's USB 4 and X870's USB 4. X870 USB 4 has the full bidirectional because it is on PCI Gen 4, where the X670E's USB 4 is on PCI Gen 3. That is because it's using an older chip. It's using an Intel Thunderbolt chip on X670E. I have not finished it yet. I'm in Act 3 though, so I am toward the end. We may test that here next. I'm pretty sure this 4 sticks of memory is actually 100% stable, because I was testing it earlier. So for all it survived the whole like idling, talking about Nova with the game running. So it's like Curve Optimizer also seems to be working well. Curve Shaper is also working well. I have the offset plus 200 megahertz, so we are overclocked to 5.9 gigahertz. While running 4 sticks of DDR5 at 6,000 speed in Gear 1. So, I'm pretty happy with the newer chipset in terms of what it's doing from a performance standpoint. See how fast Asus drop. Man, that means that resale value is bad. that resale. Now it's like we're almost talking about like cars. It's like the Asus resale value is in the garbage. The problem with Asus boards too is like because Asus makes so many different motherboards in the mid tier. Like the resale value on those Asus boards that are mid tier Asus are always like terrible. Like if you're trying to sell off your Asus board, I mean, it doesn't really have anything that's outstanding, right? Like, it doesn't have any niche things. That's the thing about ASRock. ASRock does all the really weird stuff that no one thinks about. And then, like, 5 years later, when you try to sell the motherboard, you realize that it has this one feature that somebody actually wants. Whether that be a bunch of SATA ports, or some weird, like, U.2 port or something. Like, ASRock had that on some of their older motherboards. Yeah, the reason why I like to test Final Fantasy XIV, because this is an MMO. This game is very memory intensive. Because it's an MMO, it's very CPU heavy as well. So it's a great test. It's a great real-world test for my memory overclock and my CPU overclock. Because I've overclocked both. we're overclocked to 5.9 gigahertz, and the memory running 4 sticks at 6000 is considered an overclock, because the official speed for 4 sticks of memory is 3600. So we are way overclocked. Like, think of overclocking from 3600 to 6000. That is considered a massive overclock for 4 sticks of RAM. And all the while we're doing all of this, like, we're live streaming on the exact same computer. Everything is being done on a single PC. So this is an excellent real-world test to see if this is 100% stable. It already managed to get through the mem test stable, so now I'm taking it out into the real world to see if it's... Oh, wait, is this gonna go... Okay, I need to move this way. I'm like right on the edge. Man, I'm on the wrong side of this. Everybody's over there, and I'm like stuck on the back. This is... I'm like Obi-Wan in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You know, he got separated from Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. He was like, had to like run to catch up, and he just kept getting like screwed over the whole time with like blaster shields and stuff. Like, that's basically what was happening in this fight.
Are you able to load your own GIFs on this hero's screen like on the X870E Extreme? Or add custom text?
Great question. I know you can do that on the Extreme. The X670 Hero Extreme can do that. I don't know if you can do that on Hero boards though. I'll look. I can look it up, but I don't think it. I guess my default answer is no, but we can double check. But I know you can do it on the Extreme. Wait, what? How did I get this? Wait, why are we... What? Appreciate the super chat. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I think we're in trouble. I'm gonna provoke. Oh, we have no healers. We lost. We lost. Have to redo it. Oh man. Oh. Alright, whatever, I give up. I have to redo this. So, you might be able to... I have to double check though. I read that it said that it was limited to what it could do. But there was a setting in the BIOS that allows the... it allows Windows 10 and 11. It specifically said Windows 10 and 11 to control the RGB. But that's not necessarily the, you know, like the GIF files or GIF files and all that stuff. And like animated GIFs. That's a little bit different. You need a very overkill PC to play Final Fantasy 16. Wait, what are we talking about? Yeah, I will test Final Fantasy 16 because Final Fantasy 16 is just like Forspoken. In fact, we have to test Forspoken. You may be able to add custom text though, Demaster. I don't know about the animated GIFs. Once I get through this this boss fight, I'll check on that. Oh no, another comment about 4060 Ti. Yesterday during the build stream, there was a really strange discussion happening in the chat about the 4070 and the 7700 XT and the 4060 Ti. I don't really understand what was going on in that conversation because I was trying to pay attention to the build. But I hope there's not another one of those. That was a really weird... I don't even know what was going on. The context of that was really strange. Uh-oh, I messed up. Oh boy. Oh boy. The hearts make me think of the old school Legend of Zelda games. Someone was insisting on 3070 Ti in a VRAM meta. .3070 Ti runs out of VRAM at 1080p. High settings. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy at launch was a prime example. They had, like, the developers of Hogwarts Legacy had to nerf the game's memory management system to get it to work without, like, stuttering and having problems. Out of all the weekly raid fights, this one is probably the hardest one. Like, this is the one that I see groups have to redo. This isn't even supposed to be the hardest one. It's the second out of 4. Normally the 4th one is the hardest, but this one seems to be harder for some weird reason. And it's mainly because of the weird... It's because of the crowd control moves that the boss has. Well, they don't really nerf it. All they do is they just stop optimizing. It's like they stop caring about it. Once 50 series comes out, they divert all their efforts to supporting the newer GPU generation. I mean, that's the reason why their older GPUs appear to become weaker. It's not like they're purposely trying to make them worse. It's just they stop optimizing for them so they don't get any more benefits. That's all there is to it. Alright, I guess we go forward. Oh, okay, we go the other way. Oh boy, oh boy. Why is it chasing me? Oh. Man, I can't wait until the update. The update patch is going to add the EX trial with the human Tetris part. They did remove GDDR6X from the 4070. Am I supposed to go over here? Okay. You heard a rumor of the 5080 with 24 gigabytes? Man, these rumors just keep getting more and more, like, over the top. Like, I'm still waiting for the rumor that the 5080 is a 320-bit bus instead of a 256. Oh boy. I'm flying too close to the sun. Oh no. What? Oh! Whoa! €5080 is 2,000 euros. Oh, is that a rumor or is that like, wait a minute, is that the rumor on the price? What is that? The price is actually 2,000? They said it? Or someone leaked it? Oh, I don't know where to go. Oh, man. I don't even know where I'm supposed to go. This guy's following me. Don't follow me, dude. I'm not squishy. I can actually take some hits. You can't. The mage was following me. Don't follow a tank. I like how he's following me anyway. Okay. Oh, no. Where? Oh, okay. Is it one? All right. I need to shield the healer because that one healer almost died. Line up right there. Man, that guy's positioning was perfect. He was like right at the line. Oh, speaking of MMOs, Throne and Liberty. I think today is the day that Throne and Liberty, it just launched, but today is the launch for free to play. So if you want to try out an MMO that's really hard to run, Throne and Liberty has got you covered. That is the latest Korean MMO. I think ArenaNet or NCSoft is the publisher. And the game is really challenging to run. Unless you have modern hardware, that game is actually legit hard to run. It needs a very strong CPU, for one thing. It's perfect for X3D. X3D is basically... I feel like Oh, I gotta go. Someone's gotta go over here. Oh, no, dude. Okay. Man, that mage keeps following me. That mage kept following me. I was gonna run over there, because when that was happening, we're supposed to split up into groups of 4. So we had 5 people in one group and 3 people in the other. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go run over there real quick. So they have 4, and I start running over there, and that mage just followed me. It's one of those things where you can tell if a player doesn't know what to do. If basically they pick somebody that they think is competent and knows what they're doing, or they at least appear like they know what they're doing. And they just follow them around so they don't die in the fight. Like, so obviously the mage was like, okay, the tank must know what they're doing, right? Like, they're the tank. They should know as a leader what they're doing. But the thing is, like, if you're a squishy caster, you don't want to follow a tank, because if the tank goes into an AoE, like he's gonna take damage, and you follow him in, and you're like a squishy healer or a caster, like, you're gonna get one shot. The tank will survive, but I mean, I'll take a lot of damage, I'll live, but so I don't know, man. Some people, the choices they make, it's kind of questionable in this game. What's on the left side of the camera? The left side of the camera. Oh, you mean the build? You mean the 4 sticks of DDR5? That's the PC. That's the PC that I built on stream yesterday. Now it's like fully connected up. Oh, I was gonna check for regarding the GIF files. I don't know if it'll work on that. I know that the Extreme could do it, but I don't think the Hero has it, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think you can do it, unfortunately. It doesn't mention that. Now I think you can No, I don't think it supports it. Yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be an Extreme exclusive. The animated GIF, like I assume you're talking about like on the Ryujin liquid cooler, for example, from Asus. That one supports it, but the Hero board doesn't support it. So it looks like that's exclusive to the Extreme. Yeah, because when I was looking at this motherboard last week, I was curious to know if that was there, and I remember someone was telling me that the Extreme had it, but I figured, okay, so the Extreme has it, so it's got to be an Extreme feature. So I didn't really, I never actually thought about the Hero supporting it, but just researching it here, it doesn't look like it supports it. The lighting is exclusively controlled by Armory Crate. Yeah, but the thing is, in Armory Crate, if you have a Ryujin cooler, you can customize the animation that shows on the LCD, or the, what do they call it? Well, it's kind of like an LCD screen. It's like an LED screen. How am I recording the PC? I have a webcam pointed at it. I just have a simple webcam pointed at it. I have two webcams connected to the computer, that's all. I've got the one that's connected showing me, and then I've got another one connected showing the PC on the floor. Yeah, it's a pretty basic setup. Yeah, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like... And actually, I remember I was curious about that myself yesterday, and I remember reading the review, the written review about this motherboard, the Crosshair Hero, that is, from Tech Power Up, and they were saying that the options to control the lighting are limited on the Hero compared to some of Asus's other products. So, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, it doesn't do anything there. Man, I think a lot of people... There's not a lot of people logged into this game right now. I have a feeling a bunch of them switched over to Throne and Liberty. To check out Throne and Liberty. I was in the closed beta test for that game earlier this year. I mean, it's a cool game. It's not for me. Like, I didn't think it was a game that I would enjoy playing long term. Is 6,000 across 4 sticks possible on the Ace 6? I mean, it should be, but there's a lot of caveats with doing that. It's not going to be like plug and play. You're going to have to modify, unless you're only running like 64 gigs of RAM. Like if you're doing 4 times 16, or the rare 4 times 8, for like a total of 32 with 4 sticks, then that will probably work at 6,000 on the Ace. Just plug and play, just set the profile. But if you're trying to do like 64 gigs, well, 64 might work. 64, like 16 times 4, that might work. But as soon as you go over that, like 9600, like what I'm doing here, we're doing 96 gigs of RAM. I think I should have put that in the description of the video. So for those that are curious, we are running 4 sticks of DDR5, at 6,000, Gear 1, 4 times 24. So we have a total of 96 gigabytes of RAM right now. The more RAM, the harder it is to do. It's significantly harder. It becomes exponentially harder to handle the DDR5 at higher speeds when you have more RAM, when it's higher density and higher speed. What I'm doing right now is much harder than running like 8200 with 2 sticks. 2 sticks at 82 and 84 is easier than 4 sticks at 6,000. This is more stressful on the PC and much harder to achieve. Yeah, if you want to do 52 and 48, and that'll work. What I will say, 56 might work. 56 on the Ace might work.
If one needs wings, one needs simply nature. She's great wings. Ha! A wickedly divine.
This computer, like this, the nice thing about this CPU, compared to the 7000 series Ryzen CPUs, this CPU is very easy to cool compared to the older CPUs. Like, Zen 4 ran hotter, more quickly. This Zen 5 takes a little bit longer to heat up. Like, because, I think it's because it's more efficient. Like, with this 360 AIO, I don't reach 95 Celsius. When I was on the 7950X, I would reach 95 Celsius even with a 360 AIO. At full fan speed, like 100% fan speed. Doing a Cinebench run. With this CPU, I don't ever hit 95C. Now, if I drop to an air cooler, yes. If I loop Cinebench for 10 minutes on an air cooler, then yes, I will see it get up to 95 Celsius. It'll take a while, but it will get there. But on a 360 AIO or even a 420 AIO, no, you're not going to see 95 Celsius on a 9950X. Like, unless you're overclocking, unless you basically raise the power limit with PBO, then you will see it. But if you run it stock, and then if you add Curve Optimizer, and I mean, you don't even have to add Curve Optimizer. You add Curve Optimizer and Curve Shaper, and then then it's even more. It boosts even better. I mean, it's still gonna be the same temperature. That's a normal reality for anyone who's using modern CPUs. I went all the way to the back row. I was like, I'm going all the way to the back of the theater. I'm getting away from that AoE attack. Yeah, it does run cooler than the 7950X. I mean, you can make it run as hot as the 7950X. It'll perform a lot better. We gotta line up, people. I'm going over here. Oh, I messed that up so bad. I got hit by that. But see, because I'm a tank, it's like, whatever. I can take a few, I can make mistakes, and I can survive. This game can be brutal. Especially, like, on Savage difficulty. Like, if you're not playing as a tank, I mean, even if you're playing as a tank, but still, like, if you're not playing as a tank, man, and you make a mistake... Keep in mind that when I'm saying 95C, I'm talking about 100% full load, 100% all cores are fully loaded, 100%. If I'm playing games, no, it's never gonna do 95C, ever. We're running 55 degrees right now. While I'm playing this game and live streaming and having all this stuff, browsers and everything open in the background, I'm running 55 degrees Celsius. And we're pulling like 61 watts while gaming. Yeah. On a 16 core. On a 16 core 32 thread. Let's see, what do I want? I already have the shoes. I kind of need to start working on the... I guess I'll roll on these. I rolled a 1. I rolled a 1 and then I rolled a 93. Okay, well, we'll go for that one. We'll pass this. I'll pass this. I'll pass this one. And that. And I'll hold off on those until I see what happens with that 93. Okay. It can handle Final Fantasy 16. What are we talking about? The only thing that concerns me is the temperature of my Gen 5 SSD right now. The Gen 5 SSD is currently 69 degrees Celsius. That is with Asus's M.2 heatsink that came with the motherboard. Because I took apart my Gen 5 cooler. My Gen 5 drive is this one. It's the TD510 from Micro Center. It's a 2 terabyte Gen 5 SSD. Read and write speeds are like 10,000 and 10,500. So, I took this apart. I destroyed the thermal pads that came with it, hoping that the Asus heatsink would do a better job. I think it either did the same job or might be slightly worse. So, I don't know. I mean, 69 degrees Celsius is not good. It idles at about 59 to 61 degrees Celsius. But while using the computer like this, with a GPU dumping hot air into the case constantly, it gets up to 69 degrees. The hottest it was 70 degrees. I mean, that's still 10 degrees below the throttle temperature of 80 degrees. But who wants their SSD to be at 80 degrees? Oh, I probably need to repair some of this stuff soon. Wukong is even harder to run than Final Fantasy 16. Wukong is, I think, the hardest game to run this year. Yeah, that's the hardest game. Final Fantasy 16 is very hard to run, though. There's currently no graphics card. So basically, as of today, there is no graphics card on the planet that can handle Final Fantasy 16 at 4K native ultra settings. The 4090 does 54 frames per second in that game. Alright, let's go. Let's go, let's go. This is the one that has the Persona style music. Let's turn the music up on this one. I like this one. Windows 11, Wi-Fi 7 is... Yeah, Wi-Fi... You cannot use Wi-Fi 7 if you're still on Windows 10. That's Microsoft's last-ditch effort to get people to get off of Windows 10 and go to Windows 11. They're like, that's it. You can't get Wi-Fi 7 if you stay on Windows 10. Windows 10 is banned from Wi-Fi 7. Oh, I'm main tanking for this one. I didn't realize I was the main tank. The whole time I've been on standby. I'm basically on call. I'm just on call. You know, like I'm not having to do anything. I'm just sitting here reading about the ASRock Nova, the X870E Nova, and how S tier that board is. This arena looks like it would fit into Final Fantasy VII and Cyberpunk 2077. The color scheme is making me think of Cyberpunk 2077. Acer Nitro? What is that? Does core parking benefit I mean, it can, but it's like... I honestly don't think it's really that necessary. It does benefit it, though. It does actually improve the performance. Because it's reducing latency. That's why. And it's restricting the game to the faster cores. You gotta remember, CCD 0 on a 9950X on average clocks 300 megahertz higher than CCD 1. So if your game is running on only the fast cores, it's going to see a benefit. I like how everybody in this group that just went over here didn't care. They're like, okay, we're just gonna take the bleed damage and just do it. Alright, I'm gonna split up. Everybody split up. $4K is install it. What? Yeah, I'm currently using a 4K 32-inch LG Ultra Gear. I'm not sure if that's related to what you were talking about. I like how the two tanks, the Paladin and the... Oh no, we're both Dark Knights. What is this? Why are there two Dark Knights? I thought the other guy was a Paladin. I thought I was the only Dark Knight. Who has the thing? Oh boy. I stand at the front of the line. Just stand at the front of the line. Why are there two of these giant things? Number of screen... What are we talking about? There's also the ASRock Phantom Gaming. Shockwave. Oh, I almost fell off. I actually almost fell off from that. Someone actually did fall off. Oh boy. I think we're safe in this spot. This is like the secret spot. The three of us just stand here like the Three Musketeers. And we didn't take any damage at all. We didn't even have to move. We just stood there. We found the secret spot. Man, this game is so good. This and WoW. Unfortunately, I have yet to find an MMO that can like surpass Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. Regardless of what people say about World of Warcraft, it's still one of the best MMOs. And this game, Final Fantasy XIV, probably is the best. Well, I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely in top 5 MMOs. It's probably the highest quality MMO, although WoW is actually still pretty good. I think we're gonna roll on this again. Oh, I rolled a 69 and I got it. Okay. That's the same temperature of that Gen 5 SSD. I rolled the Gen 5 SSD temperature and won it. The Gen 5 SSD is also my Windows boot drive. So we're literally running everything, Windows and all this stuff, it's running off of that drive that's running 69 degrees. I'm gonna have to figure out... I have a feeling if I switch to my Noctua air cooler, the SSD will run cooler because the giant fans on the Noctua will help cool the SSD. The problem is I have no airflow. Well, okay, besides the front intake fans and the exhaust fan and the radiator fans, there's literally a dead spot of like above the graphics card. So like if I were to show, hold on, let me see if I can let's make this larger. So if I open up the side panel here and kind of show you guys in here so you guys can see, there's the 4 sticks. 52, that's the temperature reading. The motherboard's reading my CPU. So as you can see, 52 degrees Celsius right now. And then we have the Deep Cool LT720. We have the ROG X870E Crosshair motherboard that we basically built this PC live yesterday. So we got a 360 AIO up top. And then we have a AMD, this is an AMD Radeon reference card 7900 XTX powering a 4K. It's powering 3 monitors, we have the LG 32-inch Ultra Gear and two 1440p 144Hz AOC Agon gaming monitors on the left and the right. So, and then we have this weird obelisk-looking thing that is glowing RGB. This is a Cooler Master anti-sag GPU support bracket. So I have that helping hold support the XTX GPU, and then I have an AverMedia Live Gamer 4K capture card. The only reason why this is in here is I want to make sure, like I said earlier, I want to test everything about this motherboard to make sure that there's nothing defective about it. So I wanted to populate that bottom slot and make sure that it works. So that's why that capture card's in there. I will eventually remove that because I don't really need it in there. We currently have we have 4 M.2 drives. I have to test my 5th M.2 slot. So there's one empty slot under the GPU right now, but everything else is populated, fully populated. You guys can see 4 sticks DDR5. You're seeing it here live. It works. We're streaming off of it. It's 100% stable. It passed, like, I think it did like 6 or 7 passes of mem test over the last, like, however many hours it was running that. But I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna run it live and do a real world test and see if this thing is stable. So yeah, we're running at 6,000 gear 1, or also known as the 1:1 ratio. We've tightened the timings, the latency, as I showed earlier, from 8 to 64. We're about 66 nanoseconds of latency, even with 4 sticks of memory. So I have tightened up the timings. So yeah, everything, I mean, that's pretty much it. I guess the front of it, you guys can see the intake, the triple intake fans on the LAN Cool 3. But that's basically it. This will become the new, like, test bench PC. Gotta have that postcode debug. That's probably the nicest thing about these X870 motherboards. It seems like now you don't have to pay an insane amount of money to get a postcode. Like, you can, like, even the Nova, $350 Nova, that one's got basically everything, including the postcode, which is hilarious. And then the MSI Tomahawk also has the postcode now. So, lots of options there. Alright, we got one more of these to do. Black Desert max settings. Oh, this is the one that has Akuma from Street Fighter. We're fighting Akuma from Street Fighter. I need to go over here, actually. I don't want him to face everybody. Wait, man, he's really tall. It's kind of weird playing this in first person. This is weird. The boss is, like, very angry. After this, we're going to play a little bit of Forspoken, followed by Final Fantasy 16. We're not going to spend too much time on those games, because the stream has gone on, we are now at almost 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I don't want to go over 3 hours on this stream, because we do have to end it soon. The bomb bombs. Well, I got clipped by one of them. Skip. Forgotten. We have to play Forgotten. We have to play Forspoken. That's a memory benchmark. Although Final Fantasy XVI is also a memory benchmark. Because they both use a similar engine. We'll do probably like 5 minutes of Forspoken. And then probably 10 to 15 minutes of Final Fantasy 16. And then I'll call it 100% stable. But, I mean, this game is also very memory intense. This is an MMO. I mean, there's a lot of, like, cache hit misses, rewrite to memory. I mean, there's a lot of that in MMOs. Because it's so unpredictable. So this is an excellent test. This is a perfect game to test if you have a stable memory. It's not the best one, though, because if your PC blue screens, the 7 other players that are counting on you to pull your weight, they're not going to be happy about you disconnecting on them in the middle of a boss fight. That's a nice way to get yourself on people's ban lists. So I don't recommend this unless you have high confidence in your memory overclock being stable. That's why I normally test Forspoken. That's kind of my go-to game to test memory overclocking. This group is really good. Like, I can tell when I'm with a good group because the boss's HP bar is going down fast. Like, these guys are doing their attack rotations and their combos very well. Because they are just burning through this guy's HP bar. Is your computer overclocked? If your computer's running stock, it's not gonna blue screen. The whole point of this is testing the stability of an overclock. I stay over here. I guess I'll stay over here. Okay, is that thing? I'm going over there. Not there. Guess we'll roll on these again. Oh, I rolled a 95 on that one. We'll pass on everything else, I guess. I'll pass on the gloves. I'll pass on the helmet. On this. And we are done. Okay. Well, that was an easy, well, that was pretty smooth. I only had to redo the first fight, and we got queued on the roulette for one that I was hoping not to do, but otherwise, yeah. Yeah, actually, I need to... Here, let's do this real quick. Hold on. There is one thing about on the MSI... See if I can find it. Because MSI has a new BIOS. Like, they have a new UI.
Well,
let me put this over here. Okay, so MSI. Speaking of MSI, they have a new BIOS interface. So, okay, let's take a look at this real quick. So MSI, so this is a review of the new MSI MPG X870E Carbon Wi-Fi. So this is showing the difference between the last gen X670E Carbon Wi-Fi and the new. So we have the old one on the left, we have the new one on the right. Here, let me put the subtitles there. Let's put the subtitles.
あとドラゴンちょっと若干大きくなってるじゃんってお叱りを受けたりもしたんですけど、ここがねなんか樹脂製の半クリアみたいなスモーク系のねカバー
see-through cover for the IO back and a much larger LCD display for the Dragon.
ここに M2 2個ついてるのもあるけど、グラボ
Nimutsu, there's two of the SSDs on the top above the GPU for the old one, and the PCIe slots on the new one are further apart. So basically they're copying, well, not copying, but they're basically doing what Gigabyte did last time and how everybody's following Gigabyte.
まあこれ他社さんではされてたんだけど、今までね全部一緒の色だったの。これほら一緒の色。ところがねポンプだけ白、色分けされるようになりました。まあ分かりやすい視覚的にね。
Overall, the only thing
あとコネクタでいくとねRGB の
my thing is the newer one. I feel like the M.2 heatsink on the new Carbon is not that good. あとコネクタ系でいうとこのね8ピンの補助電源つきましたと。これねこの間の動画でも紹介したんですけど、なんかいろいろ挿してグラボとかファンねフルに動かした時に安定してね電力を供給するためにこの an extra 8-pin power connector.
極冷 OC した時に安定させるためについてたんだけど、でなんか一部の人が言ってたんだけど。
But see, the Carbon, so this one already supports the CU DIMM. This is one of the first motherboards, if not the first motherboard, to support the new CU DIMM DDR5.
あとね電源回路こんな感じになってますけど、フェル数変わらないんですけど、スマートパワーステージの仕様違います。こっち80アンペア、こっち110アンペアと進化してます。ただ
Okay, so another thing is the older one, the X670E was 80 amp on the VRM. The X870E is, I think, yeah, it's in the subtitles, 110 amp. So 18 plus 2 plus 1.
しても全然電気食わないからぶっちゃけ半分でもいいかなと思うんだけど、まあ、今ねまた電源回路なんか増えていってる傾向にあるから、まあ、やっぱメーカーとしては追っちゃうんですよね。
Yeah, this is good. So
せっかくなんでこのヒート
I don't know. I think like if it wasn't for the Nova that we were talking about earlier, I was gonna say that the Carbon might actually be one of the best motherboards for this launch. However, the Nova, man, like, okay, if we put the Nova in a vacuum, like by itself, then I think MSI's Carbon's really good. I'm gonna skip, actually, he's just gonna keep on talking about like the VRM and stuff. Let's go look at the BIOS. So yeah, let's skip over here. Yeah. New BIOS. Man, this BIOS looks modern.
変わってます。まあ今これ EG モードがあって F7 を押すとねアドバンストモードになります。他社さんのデザインにね少し寄せていった感じになります。ではまず EG モードから見ていきましょう。左上なんですけどここがねゲームブーストの設定入れるところ。
See,
まああんま使う人いない。
One thing that I was very impressed by this is on this page you can see how they did the layout. I like how on the right hand side it has the CPU, it has what the CPU is clocked for, it has the core voltage, it has all the stuff is like easily visible. It's not just kind of like, you know, overwhelming the user with a bunch of stuff like all over the place in really big font. So I really like this new clean design. So this is one of the things that I think impressed a lot of people when they first saw this.
ないけどね、CPU の性能を上げるモードで、ここがねメモリ XMP です。勝ち。まあこれだけでね XMP 自動で当てれますと。昔はまあこの A を押すだけだったんだけど、今ちょっとこの小さいとこ押さないといけないから、まあ、キーボードの方が逆に。
So anyway, I was just gonna say, like, I just wanted to look at some of that because there's the smart button. You can program the smart button. I mean, I just like how the UI looks on this motherboard because it looks the most modern. You know what I'm saying? This looks very familiar, but it doesn't look messy, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it looks very modern. It looks very organized. That's what I like about this new BIOS from MSI. So yeah, definitely a nice looking BIOS. All right, so here we need to test. Should I test Forspoken or should we just skip Forspoken? Let's load up Forspoken. The Intel 15th Gen is not out yet, dude. There's not a whole lot to say about unreleased hardware. Oh, whoops. Hold on. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. This is one of the tests that will determine...
Yeah. Don't worry, this will be quick.
Huh. What's this?
Yeah, this game, you know, actually, after playing a lot of 15, this game has strangely enough, this game has a similar battle system. It's not as organized. I feel like it's a lot messier in terms of, like, you can engage combat way more smoothly, like, or way more quickly. Like, it's a seamless transition in and out of battle. But, like, for example, if I hold down this, I can charge attacks, just like in Final Fantasy 16. So, it may be that Final Fantasy 16 took that aspect from this game because this game came out first.
There it is. Could have done that with my eyes shut.
Oh, this door has a puzzle? I feel like I should have done this differently. Yeah, hold on. How do I start over? It normally shouldn't take that long to solve these puzzles. Yeah, see what I mean? It's like if it's taking like more than like 6 tries or 6 movements on the grid. Wait, why is what the? That's weird. I wasn't expecting there to be enemies in here.
I'm getting to be one tough customer.
I'd say you're becoming reasonably deadly, yes.
Thanks for having me.
So rare to meet a polite young lady these days.
One must do one's best. How did I do?
Gigabyte, it has a new branding. Like, they're using a brand called AI Top for a lot of those AI products.
Don't let them outflank you.
Not gonna happen. Oh, damn. Ha!
Okay, see, that combo is cool. I feel like because I played so many hours of Final Fantasy 16, I'm starting to like control, like, I play this game differently now because of Final Fantasy 16.
Finished in record
This game
time.
does have a pretty decent combat system.
Position did help quite a bit.
I can make something seriously good with this.
Man, there's a lot of random loot here in the middle of this field. Yeah, that was one of the other reasons why I got the Asus board, because the Asus board also has like a dynamic, they call it dynamic OC switcher mode. I think the Gigabyte AI thing is something like that, where it uses the utilization habits of the user to figure out if it should be in like OC mode or if it should be in the standard mode, like the PBO mode. Alright, I think we've done, what, 5 minutes of this? What time is it? Alright, let's, let me go back to the main. Actually, did I go over to that tower? What's the button for the map? Have I been over here? I don't think I've actually been up there. Let's go up there, and then we'll probably quit this game.
Copy that. How'd you like this? You're toast. That's not doing much. Ooh. Stay back. Okay. Got you on your toes now.
Oh man, this is cool actually. I like the combat in this game.
You're gonna love this. Nope, not working.
That big cleave. It's like playing Smash Brothers with the baseball bat.
Ooh. Gross.
Did you find something?
What was the... I forgot what the button was to activate this. Oh. Okay. Yeah, so... Alright, we need to go to that big tower in the distance. There's a stat increase over there. There's some kind of archive entry in that little village. See, this game has such a huge game world. It's just because the game world is so empty. It's kind of the game. This game could have been really, really good, actually. It's one of those games that it's more of like a tech demo with a game story within it.
There's no telling what Olas might throw at you. Keep your wits about you.
Don't worry. I'm not about to get tricked by another one of her illusions.
I'll raise the alarm if I see anything suspicious.
Thanks. That would actually be helpful.
Because you're supposed to travel so fast, the fast traveling around, like the free running aspect to this game with the parkour, I think that's what justified making the world so large. But because the world's so empty, it just feels so... It's strange because, you know, like, Elden Ring is a game that also has a very desolate world that's very large and spread out. But that world is full of stuff that intrigues the player. Like, this game, it does have things to explore and see as you travel through the world, but it's very repetitive in a way that just doesn't... It just doesn't keep the player engaged in the same way that a game like Elden Ring does. Or a Zelda game, for that matter. Like, that's why those games are just so memorable in comparison. This is a decent game, actually.
Very ladylike.
What? I can't even yawn.
Alright, so let's, I guess we'll just save. Save on, this one. Okay. Do I plan on getting more X870E motherboards for testing? No, not unless the manufacturers want to send me a test sample. I had to make a decision and choose one, and I mean, it ended up being the Hero. But I didn't know about the Nova, though. I feel like, man, I probably should have done more research. Thoughts on the upcoming 9950X 3D having both CCDs with extra. I mean, that could potentially be either really, really good or really, really bad, depending on how... Well, yeah, that's still going to need the... it's going to still need a way to schedule the stuff. And when you have a lot of cache on both CCDs, I think the scheduling... thread scheduling becomes even more important. Because if you have something hanging in the L3 cache on the second CCD, but the core on the first CCD wants it, now it has to hunt through even more cache than what it had to do previously. But we'll see. Maybe just having more cache just helps overall. Okay. So it's been a while since I played this on the 7900 XTX. The recent playthrough that I was doing, most of it was on the 4080 Super. But I think at 4K, the XTX actually runs this game better than the 4080 Super. Yeah, with frame gen, it's way more smooth. I feel like the 4080 Super had way more weird sub 60 dips that if you're playing with frame gen, it just makes it even worse.
You need.
I'm running 96 gigabytes.
But no.
Wait, I'll test 192. I don't think I'm going to test 128, but I will test 192. If I test 128, I will test it at 5600 because I have 128 gigs of RAM that has a 5600 XMP profile, which is actually the first DDR5 that I actually got a long time ago, like 2 years ago.
There's no one like.
In fact, I have it right here. So this RAM right here, the G-Skill Ripjaws, this is a 64 gigabyte kit. So it's 2 times 32. I have 2 of these. So I can do 128 with an XMP profile of 5600. So I could at 1.25 volts. So I could do that. I mean, some of my older DDR5 videos featured that RAM. But since then, I've got better RAM. Like, I have the kit that we're using right now, for example. And then I have like a 192 gigabyte. So I have the 2X48. I've got 2 of those. So I can run 192. That RAM has an XMP profile for 6400. AMF2 is out. Yeah, I saw that. I actually updated the drivers on this computer today. So I am running the 24.9.1.
And I've never looked back.
They fixed that stupid problem where when your computer monitor would go to sleep and you'd come back, the adrenaline software was open. Did anybody run into that problem? That was a problem on the 24.8.1.
Be careful.
But they fixed it in 24.9.1. That was annoying because that was on, like, I was using, I think it was the July or it was the driver for the Warhammer 40K Space Marines 2. It was that one. Yeah, you rolled back to 24.7. No, I stayed on that driver. It was ridiculous, man. Like every time I walk away from the computer, I'd come back, wake up the monitors, and the adrenaline software is right there. And I'm like, wait, why is this thing open? I don't remember opening this. Yeah, they fixed it though.
You hear me? They're crashing and bombing and they won't stop until they've slaughtered every single one of us.
How do you suppose they'll manage that? Never seen my little bastards.
Okay, we need to enter the free cities. Oh, what level am I? Oh, I gotta go to Canberra. Yeah, we don't have time for that. Yeah, it's gonna be another time. Let me see what's the maybe I can do one of the hunts. Yeah, no, fluid motion frames does have its uses.
Welcome to the Patron's Whisper. Your benefactors are a generous
Oh wow, I didn't
lot.
even know I had that much renown.
All yours.
Yeah, we gotta max this out. I don't even know what the limit is.
Come again.
I'd have to boot up
I
the
have more for
PlayStation
ya.
5 to see what the maximum is. Because as far as I know, I did everything for this game outside of the DLC. And I did not play on New Game Plus or Final Fantasy mode. I do plan on playing on those modes on PC though. And I may revisit the game. I will revisit this game on the PlayStation 5 Pro in November. So we're almost a month away from the PS5 Pro. Oh, I was right there, and then I literally walked away from what I wanted to look at. Okay, let's see. So what is this? It is only recently that they have come down from the highlands to hunt in the swamps surrounding Martha's Rest. The swamps surrounding Martha's Rest.
We've got a few rooms going spare now. You want a bed for the night?
Wait, wrong button. Where's the... Said the swamps surrounding Martha's Rest. So it's probably... Might actually be... Wait, what's this? Oh, that's Atlas. So it might actually be somewhere over here. The Whispering Waters.
Ready, go?
We'll do this one hunt, and then that's probably where we're gonna end the stream. Let me see. Where it's probably up here. In fact, let me mark it. Let's go over there. Okay, maybe it's not over here. Yeah, I would expect that. But the thing is, 6400... See, what a lot of people seem to fail to realize is 6400 1.1 is actually harder to do than 8000 1.2. So once the price of 8000 DDR5 goes down, that will be an easier method to get that level of performance compared to hoping that you get a CPU that can do 6400 at 1.1 stable. Unfortunately for me, none of my Ryzen CPUs can do 60, including the 9950X. None of them can do 6400 1.1. So for me, 8000 is the better option. And I think it's going to be true for most people. I mean, the only thing holding them back is really the price of DDR5 8000. Man, where is this thing? This thing is like not around here. I feel like the sweet spot for that kind of memory, though, is 48 gigabytes.
Time to fight.
Hold on, does this just go back over there? I think I'm... Hold on, what is this? That's up here? 3 reads. Wait, I ran through all of this. Unless, maybe there's something here. Rosarian Aqueduct. Sorrow-wise. I don't think the enemy's over there. I think he's gonna be like either up here, or he's maybe no. No, I don't think East Pole. I think it's probably somewhere over here. Hold on. Remove this and go here. Well, I guess I'll check this. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that thing around on this side.
Time to fight.
Is this... Wait a minute, what is this thing? Is this a mark? No, that's just a big horn. Okay, so that's not one of them.
All right.
Can't find this thing. There's a lot of newer type of enemies.
Don't get surrounded.
I think I found it. I think that's it over there.
All right.
Is that it? What? No. Oh, but there's actually something here. All right, hold on. There is actually a treasure here. And this thing has a lot of HP. There. Man, the thing has a lot of HP. I wasn't expecting it to have that much. No idea where the hunt mark is. But it's somewhere in this area. Anyway, how are we doing on time? I guess, okay, so it's time to end the stream. So it looks like this is 100% stable. Yeah, this is good. So that means the newer motherboard with the improved signal to noise ratio on the wires from the CPU to the memory is better than the older ones. And that's expected, right? That's not anything out of the ordinary, I would say. So, I mean, that's cool because it shows now that if you want to run 4 sticks of DDR5, it is possible to do it at a decent speed. And it looks a lot nicer than 2 sticks, I will say that. So anyway, guys, that's probably going to be it for this stream. Thanks everybody who tuned in. And I will catch you guys on Tech Thursdays. So if you're new to the channel, we do these live streams every Thursday. Same time. It's always this type of topics. Like, it's always tech-related things, like PC builds. Sometimes gaming. Sometimes we talk about the consoles. Sometimes we talk about non-PC related things. Typically, like gaming stuff. Like, for example, the discussion of Game of the Year and stuff like that. So, and we're probably going to be doing that again, especially next month. So, if you're into this type of stuff as a hobby, do get subscribed to the channel so you get notified for when we go live. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.